Someday I will get to cleaning all this stuff up. Today is not the day though. I gotta get this bike back on the road cleaned up. Time to get to it. Hope y'all are doing well. I am driving up to the yard now. Gonna meet up with Dad. We have a generator enclosure to finish constructing at our yard. Then we're gonna load it up into the truck, drive it down to site, and do a little installation. All right, just pulling up on the job. Not the job, the yard. Gonna need the camera gear. Maybe I'll grab the flex. Yeah, I'll grab the flex.
Gotta figure out the screw size or the drill size for those big screws that I got. Hopefully they're slung back in the truck.
We bought two different sizes of these Simpsons ties, strong Capcorn flathead lag bolts. These are going to be what we're using to lag or fasten the 4 posts for this enclosure to the concrete slab. It's a big old bit. 3/8.
Hole?
Yep. Shows a drill bit, 3/8. Oh. There she is. That's it. All right. Come on. Oh, it's going to be nice when we build our new shop. Everything's fairly organized, but it's all has to be packed in very tight, and so when you end up needing a tool, you end up taking everything out and just to get what you need. It's a little frustrating. It takes too long.
Here you can actually get all the way around it.
Okay guys, what you're looking at here are the two ends or the sides for a generator enclosure, basically a fence that we're building. You may have seen in our previous videos that we poured a concrete pad and we also finished installing a generator. So this is going to be the finishing touch going around that. Our next step here is the Fabricator Corners. We're doing a 45-degree beveled edge, which is going to be really nice looking. What you're seeing here is going to actually be the front of the enclosure, which is going to have 2 gates on it. That we're going to be fabricating a little later, and that will be installed with hinges, metal hinges. I like these trim head screws.
Hold on. Can't find them around here locally.
Of course, all of our screw patterns are laid out so they all match and they will all be lined up. These corners are all going to get glued and screwed, just as if we're installing it like trim. Okay, now it's time to cut our return pieces. Our bevel is still a 45-degree angle, however our dimension changes because the width of the fencing on the back of the enclosure is going to be a little bit wider, and it changes the layout of the fencing. Okay, now that we're ripping this material down, I want to take a second to note a few tips. Obviously, if you get nervous with your fingers around the blade, you can use a push block. These are wide enough that my dad feels comfortable not having to do that. I also would probably be fine just using my hands. But you'll notice his left hand is staying put. And when he's feeding material through, that hand is being used to apply pressure against the fence. That will keep the stock flat against the fence, which makes your cut flat and straight. Okay, now we're going to lay out our screw patterns. We're doing 2 3/4 on this side and 6 7/8 on this side. While I finish layout on this, Dad's going to glue the edges and get them set and ready to go. These corners weren't sitting just as perfect as we like it, so we're going to tap in just a couple of little trim nails, tighten this up and hold it. Did you see that corner suck right in? Perfecto. Another little carpentry tip for you. Before you nail something like this, flip your nail upside down and tap a little hole into the wood that you're nailing into with the head of the nail. Then switch your nail to the normal way and drive it. Come up just a little bit. Now that we have our side panels assembled, Our next step is going to be to build the frame, the upper rail for this assembly. We're going to chop everything to length first, and then we're going to go into the fine cuts. Now that we have all of our pieces chopped to length, we're now going to be starting our notch cutting. Let me explain that block that you see attached to the fence. A simple spacer block attached to your fence like this works really well, especially when you're cutting a 2x4 piece of stock, or any piece of stock for that matter, that is going against the grain, or where the large amount of the stock is outbound of the table like this. If we hadn't installed the block like this and set the fence to accommodate the extra width of that at the start, there would be a lot of friction between the end of that board and the fence, which would increase the likelihood that the board would want to walk on you. A simple step like this will help you take your carpentry up to the next level and will ensure that you have a nice, crisp, clean cut. Okay, now that we've got our first cuts complete, it's time to cut in the other direction. Can you start to see where we're going with this? Here is yet another trick for you. When cutting in this direction, obviously the blade is circular and we're trying to cut out a square notch. If you were to cut all the way to the line, or all the way through it until the material is completely removed, you'd be completely overcut and past that initial cut that we made. So if you notice the blue tape that's on the table right now, that tape is being used to mark exactly where that blade is going to end, and once our first cut that we made lines up with the end of that tape, that's where we stop. Alright, now it's time to kick this into high gear. We're going to flip the fence over to the other side, repeat the same process, and then we'll get back to assembly. Here's another look at that tape trick. Set your tape down right on your table. You're going to take your square and make sure you're square to the fence, and then you're ready to go. Okay, all our cuts are complete. Now we're going to work on cleaning these notches out. Just a couple light taps with a hammer should do the trick. Then we'll come back later, which Dad is doing, and clean up our edges with the chisel. Okay, set your timers. On your mark, get set, go! Let's see how fast we can assemble these. This video is not sped up in any way. Okay, we're almost all done. Just got these last couple of pieces to install on the gates. We're going to pop the hardware on there, and then we'll load these into the truck and get down to the job site.
Want to let it hang up?
Yeah, that's fine. Cardinal?
I don't. It's not actually a cardinal. It's like
yeah, I was
this
gonna
morning
say,
song thing, or
that's not a normal cardinal song. Alright guys, we're just going to clean up our tools now, load up these parts, and head down to Hollister. It's screaming hot, feels like 110 degrees, and the white truck does not have air conditioning. So if we both have heat stroke and crash the truck and die, well, you won't see this video. Holy that's the hardest thing I've ever touched. Don't rub up against that, Toby. You're branded like cattle. Okay, we made it down to the job site. It is extremely hot. I did not film our truck ride down here because it was boring. We're going to take this first side piece over to the slab and get a layout for our bolts. We used our SDS Plus drill from Bosch, which is an awesome drill. That was a 3/8 drill bit. You saw me grab that earlier out of our little shed there. Then we used the flex impact gun to sink these lag bolts. As I may have mentioned earlier, or you've seen in the video prior to this, we bought two different length bolts. We bought, I think, 8 or 6 inch, and then 3 or 4 inch. But the longer of the two bolts ended up being too long. We did not have a drill bit long enough to be able to drill a hole and sink these. So we ended up just using the smaller ones. Then we went and bought some more of them and finished this up after the fact. Okay, that first side's all installed and it's feeling solid. Side 2 is coming up. I'm drilling the holes for the bolts to go through. Dad's trimming the legs so that the entire thing will sit tight to that concrete slab. Side 2 went on just as well as side 1. Now we're going to be attaching our hinges. The screw pattern on the hinges didn't line up exactly how we needed them to, so we made our own holes. I think the heat was getting to us. We installed these hinges incorrectly. They should not have been installed on the inside like that. It should have been installed right on the face of that cedar. At the end of the day, it wasn't that big of a deal. it accomplished what we wanted it to, and we ended up actually fixing it and doing it right the following day when we came back to finish wiring the generator. But we are real happy with how this is coming out. It'll make accessing the propane here and the generator real easy for maintenance. That is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have definitely earned an ice cold beer as soon as we get home. And until next time, guys, please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and give us a follow on our Instagram and Facebook. We will see you on the next one. Adios.